to have you turn over your Sunday paper, and you're going to find there's an outline there to follow along with the message, and I want to actually dive into that a little bit right now. Because what we are talking about, this is the last week of our series called Play Ball, Relationships at Work, and we've been looking at relationships and how we can make them work for us all for a whole month now. And today we're talking about a very, very important aspect of those relationships. Because you see, it goes something like this. We get into relationships, and I don't care if it's the new people at work, it's your friends at school, whether it's a husband and wife or a boyfriend, girlfriend, everything usually starts out pretty good. At least if you're going to stick with that relationship, you're having a lot of fun. And you're just enjoying each other's presence. And then what happens? Something we call reality, right? Instead of all that fun, just enjoying all these new and novel things about each other, you get down to doing things like the dishes and the job that has to be done and maybe the fad consciousness of your friends at school, who knows what. And all of a sudden this friction enters into it and so on. And it squeezes out so much of that stuff we enjoyed so much. And what we're missing a lot of time is what we're going to talk about today. And that is this technical term. I want you to all learn this term today. It's called fun. And if it's not in your vocabulary, you've got a problem. But we're going to talk about it because fun is such an important part of our life together. And it's such an important part of God's intention for us as well. So like it says on your Sunday paper, what we're talking about today is if it's not fun, something's wrong. And we're going to look at where the fun can be in our relationships. And I know some people wonder, well, is this really something to preach about in church? Well, I think so. In fact, some people wondered about this whole play ball image that we're using and all the analogies of that. And the fact is that, it's a very biblical concept. I mean, the play ball idea that we've had going really comes from the idea of baseball. And did you know that baseball is mentioned in the Bible? You didn't know that. Baseball is, in fact, it was so important to God that it's the very first thing that the Bible talks about. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, how does it start? In the big inning, God... Yeah, they don't get any better, folks. And in fact, we go from there to God introducing tennis. Any tennis fans here? All right. Okay, God also talks about tennis in the first book of the Bible. That's also in Genesis. You all know about Joseph, perhaps. He was enslaved with the Egyptians, and then he gradually, progresses until he's a very important person to Pharaoh. And it says in the Bible, oh, my jokes are so bad you cut off my mic. It says in the Bible that Joseph served in Pharaoh's court. So we know that ball and playing ball is I was waiting for that. It's a very important part, and I think God also wants us to have a little bit of fun with some of these things. Now, so it all gets down to this issue. What does God think about fun? I mean, is God interested in fun or not? And I really believe God is very interested in fun. Now, granted, you don't find that word in the Bible a lot, but you find it talked about a lot. And going back to that very first chapter of Genesis, seriously now, when God is creating everything that there is in the world, it's not a scientific story, it's not a historical story, it's a how can we convey the truth, the best story. God is creating everything, and then every day, God makes something, and God kind of leans on his elbow and takes a look at it and chuckles a little bit and said, that was pretty good. I like that. In fact, God looks at all of creation by the end of the 6 days of creation, and you'll find this on your Sunday paper or up on the screen. I bet it'll be popping up there in a second. God saw everything that God had made, and indeed it was very good. It was very good. I mean, God doesn't say, that was worth my time and effort. Or God doesn't say, that can be productive, or I think I did a nice job on that. No, God says, this is good. I like it. I have some pleasure in it. I'm delighted by it. I enjoy what I have just made. God is having fun with what God made. And it isn't just because we did such a good job. God says, what I created is a fun thing. And it doesn't just stop there. It isn't just that God created that way originally, but God continues to see it that way. God tells us over and over that God is delighted in us. And God is delighted in you as well. Not just creation as a whole, but in you as well. So in Ephesians chapter 1, we find Paul writing, and he says, long, long ago, God decided to adopt us into his family through Jesus Christ. God decided to make us in his family, and then it says, what pleasure God took in planning this. What pleasure, how much fun God had in thinking about how wonderful this was going to be to have you and me in God's world. And it isn't just in the planning. It wasn't like, well, God, I thought this was going to be a good idea. It didn't really pan out. I got stuck with you folks, you know. No, God says, I really like what happened with you. We find Jesus speaking here. Towards the end of his ministries, he's talking to his disciples and what he wants them to go on and to teach other people. Read this with me. You'll find it in the box. In fact, this is a verse that I would encourage all of you to memorize this week, because it's a great one to remember how much God enjoys and loves you. Read this with me. I have told you these things that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. I've told you these things. All this I've taught you, my presence among you, what I have done, I've given it to you so that my joy, hey, this is a guy who's going to be on a cross. I mean, he's had a lot of persecution. He says, no, I'm full of joy. And I want this joy that I'm experiencing to be in you. And I want your joy not to be incomplete. I don't want it to be watered down. I don't want it to be heavy laden. I want it to be full and complete. And so I'm going to give you my joy. Now, the theological translation of the word joy is fun. All right? At least that's one we're going to work with today. And if you have your ball from these previous weeks, and we usually pass them around. I know there's a couple left. We have bought hundreds and hundreds of these, and they have all gone now. So I think there's only a couple left. But if you don't have one, I'm sorry. Just have to use your imagination. But you can pull out your ball and use the pen on your chair and write the word fun. That's your last word to add on to it. We've had we had choose, we had currency, we had work. Today, the word is fun. You can write that on your ball. See, when you get lifted beyond your circumstances, and it doesn't all quite make sense, but somehow it lifts you up. It makes you be able to be something you couldn't be. You are experiencing joy. You are experiencing the fun that God wants to be in your life. Something that helps you be what God created you to be, not what this world has crushed you down into being. God believes in fun. And that's a theological term for fun. It's joy. Now, the theological equivalent for laughter is grace. That's the next fill in there on your outline. The theological equivalent of laughter is grace, because laughter does that too. It's a gift that we have. We feel something when we laugh that we don't understand, that we can't really make happen for ourselves, but laughter does something to us. It is a gift from God that lets us enjoy and experience God's love for us in a way that we can't quite figure out. It is a gift from God. Now, this is Memorial Day weekend, and it's a summer opener, so I think it's a good week to kind of sit back in our chairs and have a little bit of fun. And a premise that we're working with today is that if you are in a relationship, and I don't care if it's a spouse or a partner or kids or parents or friends or coworkers, whatever, neighbors, whatever it might happen to be, but if you are not able to laugh with that person, if you can't sit down and have fun with that person, my guess is that that relationship is in trouble. You think that's true? I think it's true. And on the other hand, if you can laugh, if you can have fun with that person, I doubt that there's very much that could get into that relationship that you couldn't deal with. Because fun is going to give you that tool. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's pray. Lord, you brought us into your holy presence today. It is holy because this time is set apart. It is set apart for your purpose. We ask that you speak to us now. Let your love and your smile, your joy, your delight that you see in each and every one of us in this world around us, even though it isn't quite perfect, in fact, it's not even close to perfect, but that joy could somehow seep into us. And we could feel the humor, the love, the excitement, the delight that you see in us. Be with us and work that miracle in each and every one of us today. Amen. Well, we have a creative arts team that meets and kind of helps work out all the stuff that we do for these services. And we were thinking, well, what is the best video image that we can think about that just shows how much fun life can and should be? And we came up with this. I think most of you have probably already seen it.
alert. I'm glad you're here.
Came over the moment I heard.
Well, how is he?
I never seen him as bad as this, and that's the truth. How about them? It's contagious, you know.
Shall we get spots? Oh, highly unlikely. Oh, Uncle Albert.
Oh, bless me, bless my soul. It's Mary Poppins. I'm delighted to see you, Mary.
Uncle Albert, you promised.
Oh, I know, but I tried. Really, I did, my dear. But I so enjoy laughing, you know, and when and when I start, it's all up with that's what happens to me. I love to laugh. Oh, my goodness. I can't help it. You can see that. I just like laughing, that's all.
Jane, don't you dare. You'll only make him worse. It's really quite serious.
Yes, whatever you do, keep a straight face. Last time it took us 3 days to get him down.
Good morning, Jacobs. Well, let's stand and sing together. Let's have some fun, huh? Those who trust. Sing it out. Those who trust in the Lord are a strong mountain. They will not be moved. Shake the sleepies out. Those who trust in the Lord are a strong mountain. They will not be moved. Though the world moves like mad, you alone are faithful. You alone are faithful. Jesus, you will not be changed. Do it like Audrey. Those who trust in the Lord are as Mount Zion. They will not be moved. Those who trust in the Lord are as Mount Zion. They will not be moved. Though the world moves like that, you alone are faithful. You alone are faithful. Just you will not be changed. Christ the King sets my feet on a firm foundation that will not be moved. Come on, Christ the King sets Yeah.
You know, I think you find when you start having some fun with that, wow, you know, it just gets kind of comfortable in here. And God uses that fun. I know fun can just be fun, and we can use fun for wrong purposes. We can use anything for wrong purposes. But there are holy purposes to fun. And God has intentions for fun to play a role in helping you keep your relationship, both with each other and with God, alive. And with us as a congregation, alive. Now, okay, granted, the Bible tends to not be a knee slapper, okay? I'll give you that. You know, it doesn't quite read like a Jim Carrey movie. I knew his name come to me. Is that right? Sounds wrong. Yeah, okay. But you know what? There is a lot of humor in there. I think the people who wrote it kind of were always trying to make everything holy and, you know, kind of disguise it. But when you start getting comfortable with the Bible, when you start reading these stories, you start seeing some of the stuff going on in there. And one of the first things that we find that God uses fun for, God uses our ability to play and to laugh together for, is that God uses it to break stress. That's the fill in there. God uses laughing, God uses fun, God uses play to break stress. And boy, don't we know about that. Don't we know all the stress in our lives? And haven't you had some of those experiences in your own life where the stress was just there on top of you and suddenly someone cracks a joke? I mean, it was so inappropriate at that moment. But could you help but laugh? And suddenly it just kind of started taking over and you could start dealing with that stress. I mean, it kind of just made that stress go away like a boogeyman when you turn on the light switch. God wants to use it that way. I have a friend named Lloyd. Lloyd, he is just one of the greatest guys in the world. He's 70-something, and he goes sailing with me almost every year up in the Apostle Islands of Lake Superior. And I remember, he's an old Navy man, but he'd only been on great big huge cruisers. He had no idea what a 38-foot sailboat was going to be like. But he was my friend, and he says, I'm going to go sailing with you, Greg. So we go up there, and we go out of Port Superior on this 38-foot boat, and just it's a beautiful sunny day. We're shielded from these heavy winds by the mainland there, and we're cruising up the North Channel, just having a great time, and he's at the wheel a little bit. We're all taking turns. This is just plain fun. Well, anyway, we round the top of the mainland, and all of a sudden, the wind hits us full force, 20-some knots of wind, no longer being protected from it, plus we're turning into it. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with a sailboat, but when a sailboat hits the wind like that, it does what we call heel over. It leans way away from the wind. Now, for reasons that I'm not going to take the time to explain to you, it is impossible to tip one of these boats over. Okay? This is a 38-foot boat. It weighed probably 8 tons. 80% of its weight is underwater in the keel. It cannot tip over. But try to convince Lloyd of that. There's this little... like, you know, one of these round, like you would have in a level, only it's U-shaped, and it measures how far the boat has heeled in degrees. And his eyes are just on this little meter. Greg, it's up to 30 degrees. You know, he's sure we're going over at any time. And I could just see he's getting more and more stress. I had to figure out what to do with Lloyd because he was going to ruin his whole trip. And I said, Lloyd, I need you to take the wheel for a second. He said, I don't think I can do that, Greg. Well, I said, you can hold on to it. You won't fall off the boat because you'll hold on to the wheel. So I said, okay, Greg. He gets on the wheel, and I go down in the cabin. Where'd you go? So I'm making coffee, Lloyd. You're doing what? This was not fun for him. I thought it was pretty funny. So I'm making coffee, and I sit down. I come up with a magazine, and I sit down and say, can't you take the wheel now? No, you're doing fine, Lloyd. He said, well, there's an island ahead. I said, miss it, you know. And finally, so he gets on, he finally says to me, this isn't going to tip over, is it? I said, no, and everybody on the boat starts laughing. He gets it, okay? Now, he didn't find it funny then, but I remember this story so vividly because every time I've been together with Lloyd for the years since then, he has told that story again. And he laughs about it, and he remembers how his stress got broken up by being forced into laughing at something that he didn't think was funny. Now, the Bible does this over and over again as well. There's a man in the Old Testament named Elijah. He's a prophet, okay? And he's got a hard job. Prophets in the Old Testament always had the worst jobs. And God had put him on a holy mission, and everything was against him. In fact, the Bible tells us this Queen Jezebel and Ahab the king had teamed up and had destroyed all the prophets of God. And he was the only one that was left, and he was running for his life. And no matter what, he just felt persecuted. He felt this stress piling on top of him, and nothing would relieve him from all this stress he was feeling. And so he goes running up to the top of a mountain, and he hides in a cave, in a cleft in the mountain, hiding from everything that's going on. He says, God, you got to come and help me. He says, I'm the only prophet left, and they're looking for me now. They want to kill me. And God, you can just see God saying, lighten up, I've got plans here. Don't worry about this so much. But was Elijah ready to hear that? Nah. No way. Elijah wasn't going to hear it. So God said, okay. Yeah, you just watch. I'm gonna come, and you're going to see me, and then you won't have to worry about it anymore. And so he's there, and all of a sudden, you'll find this. It's written in your Sunday paper if you want to look at it. But God sends this wind, this huge wind to the mountain. And it says it's so strong that it starts tearing the mountain apart. Rocks are rolling around and everything. And Elijah looks, okay, great. This is the big, powerful God that's going to save me. And it says, no, but God wasn't in the wind. I can just see God, I got him. He thought that's where I was coming. That's not where I am. And so then there's an earthquake, and the mountain rumbles, and things are falling apart again. And Elijah looks out and says, God, you're finally here. God, nope, not me. Just fooled you, though, didn't I? And then after that, there's a fire. A fire comes up and starts burning up the mountain. You can just imagine the chaos in the mountain. And God's like, here is certainly a powerful display of God and God's presence among us. No, God wasn't in the fire either. And then, after all this is over, the Bible tells us there was this, I'm going to say it in Hebrew because it's the only way you can capture it. Kol dama deka. Can you say it with me? Kol dama deka. Now, this is an untranslatable word or phrase. It really just means a suggestion of a whisper. It's probably the best way. I've never found two translations that decide to say it the same way. But it means that in all these great, huge displays of power, God says, nah, I'm not there. You just chill here a little bit. But when you finally give up looking for all that, and you are willing to listen to the silence and just know that I'm there with you. And in that voice of this suggestion of a whisper, God says, so what are you doing? Why are you hiding up there? And he says, well, everybody's trying to kill me. And God just says, just go. Go do the work, all right? Chill out. And I'm sure Elijah told that story for the rest of his life of how he found. So what we do is we find that God uses humor and brings that into our lives in ways that God is laughing at us, and we gradually begin to get the joke in ways that help us break stress. And I've got Heidi who's going to help us with a little demonstration about breaking stress. And now she's not a great example of breaking stress in relationships because she and Bob have the perfect relationship.
Well, sure.
But from theory.
From theory, reading books on the subject.
Other people's problems.
That when stress starts to build up in relationships, it feels like it's weighing down on you. I know for me, just hypothetically speaking again, I kind of get grumpy, like at everyone. And, that starts to spill over into further and further relationships. I start to feel kind of insecure, like I'm not even trusting that relationship anymore. And you can talk it out. I mean, that works too. I've read books on that. Well, because you probably would say that sometime. You can talk it out. But, right. But sometimes it just takes something a little bit different. It takes that introduction of humor and fun and laughter and joy to just break that stress. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about drawing a circle around our relationships. If you were here, we talked about that. But that circle, and we said the idea is to keep stress outside of the circle, not let it inside or divide you. But nonetheless, even outside, the weight of that stress around you can be just like a pile of stones that's waiting to fall down and crush you. And the neat thing about laughter, about fun, is what? Well, it pops it. It turns those wall of stones into just like a big old bubble. And it lifts that kind of oppressive weight that you're feeling on you, and it also feels new, like you can start over. So what we want to do is give you an image to help you think about this, because you're going to be in one of those situations before long, I'd be willing to bet, where you're in a relationship and there's stress on top of you that it feels so heavy, and we want to give you something to think about to realize how you can claim God's love, God's enjoyment of you, have that little sense of humor that can help you turn it into something you can easily deal with. Okay. So relationships, I have like more than one person. So I have two volunteers this morning. Claire and Jane. And I'm going to have you stand on this stool. There we go. One. It's kind of small, so you got to, oops, don't step on your sister's toes. Stand the wide way on it. Can you maneuver around there? See, they're having fun already. There you go. Okay. Okay, I'm going to tuck that in because that's going to be in there. Okay, so we have our pool here, and it's filled with bubble solution. So we're going to attempt here today to create a wall of bubbles around you. And we'll see if we can just hold it in or what happens. What do you think is going to happen? We don't know.
We're going to see.
We don't know either because science and illustrations don't always match up quite the way we
Some
want
of them
them
work
to.
perfectly.
But we know that you're going to give us lots of grace because you have it on your fill-in. So
Okay.
here we go.
Oh!
Oh! Let's see if we can get up a little bit
Okay, I
higher.
think we need everybody to laugh on this.
Okay.
Let's go for one more. See if we can get
Okay.
it and hold it up over so before it pops. All right, so there's that.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
You know, I think no matter how hard we would try, we could not keep that bubble if we were having fun. You know, it's that thing that breaks the stress.
And if you guys weren't having so much fun today, that bubble would just sit there and sit there and sit there for hours until they did something, but because you're having so much fun.
So thanks for helping to make this illustration for us.
Here you
Right,
go.
ready? 1, 2, 3, go!
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, you know, just picture that. Picture that bubble going up, and it can't even make it around you. It just goes away, all right? All right, I know it isn't that easy in real life, but have that image and know that God wants to help you get things into perspective, because that's the second thing that fun can do. It not only breaks stress, but it does what? It helps us to bring hope. It brings hope. When it breaks that stress, it brings hope. And along with it, it brings vision. See what happens when our relationships are surrounded by all that stress, all those things that worry us and bother us and that are hanging down on us. It makes us impossible to see the larger world. It helps us, or keeps us from getting perspective on how God wants us to see our relationships and the world around us. And God says, when I burst that for you, when we do that, and you can do that so often with having fun and realizing that God brought you together to have fun, then you can start seeing things the way God wants you to see them. I want you to see a my story from a Jacob's Well woman named Michelle Reimer. And we picked her because, you know, we were talking about who is someone who's dealing with issues, but nonetheless is able to just have so much fun and enjoy life so much. And around the table, everyone said, Michelle. Because Michelle is dealing with more stuff on a day-to-day basis than probably almost any of us here. And yet, when you get together with her, she just laughs at her situation, she laughs at life, she laughs at herself, and she just keeps on going on. She breaks that stress, and she finds hope. Let's see this.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm here to share my story with you. I guess it all starts with the fact that my life has had some challenges. Among them all, I was diagnosed with an incurable disease 15 years ago. It presents me with new and complicated challenges almost daily. I suppose I could have given up. A lot of people wouldn't fault me for being an unhappy person. I've been tempted to play that role and to just feel sorry for myself. But when I've been there, well, let's just say it's not a good place to be either. The fact was that not only didn't I want to be an unhappy, hopeless person, but I had a child, and she needed me. I needed to be there for her, and as a happy person. But where was that kind of attitude going to come from? Certainly not from my doctors. I needed to find it somewhere else. I needed it to come from God. The gift God has given me to help me find hope is humor. Somehow God has given me the ability to not be in denial of all my problems I've got. I don't dare be. I have to be on top of all of them to stay as healthy as I can be. But God has given me this ability to look straight in the face of the situation of my life and laugh. Laugh at myself, laugh at my problems, and say, my life is bigger than they are. And getting to that point wasn't easy, nor was it automatic. In fact, it took a long time for faith to get to the point where it gave me power to claim my life and enjoy what I have. Not feel sorry for myself for what I do not have. My faith was always important to me, but it didn't really connect with me. I always felt a little unworthy and a bit like an outsider, but some people changed that for me. Some friends of mine who are here today invited me to be a part of starting Jacob's Well. About 2 years ago, we were launching this thing. 18 of us traveled to Southern California to attend a conference. And there I discovered something incredible. It was after a couple of days we had learned and experienced so much together. We had all gone out to dinner, and afterwards I was sitting on the beach by myself with my feet dug into the sand, watching the waves. And it's hard to explain, but a feeling of approval and love from God flooded over me like I had never felt before, and it changed my life. It was all wrapped up with these people and our common purpose of starting this church that can make so much difference in people's lives, like it has mine. So I laugh a lot, and it isn't just because I'm an optimistic person, it's because God is really good, really. And every day when I wake up and I put my feet on the floor and say, thanks to God for one more day, even with all my problems and complication, there is hope. And laughter is how God lets it break through to me. God's love is there for you too. I hope my story helps you to see it and to believe it a little more than before. Laugh. Let God's light shine in a bit. Thanks.
Well, thanks to Michelle for sharing that with us. You know, the Psalms say, take delight in the Lord, and the Lord will give you the desires of your heart. Take delight in the Lord. Enjoy. Laugh along with God and what God is about in your life, and God will give you the desires of your heart. Not everything you ever wanted, not your greed. God will give you what your heart most longs for. Your heart longs for hope. Your heart hopes for a reason to continue tomorrow and to believe in your future and to love the people around you. Laugh with God, and God will always fill you with that kind of hope. You know, I sometimes just wonder, you know, you see churches full of stodgy people and people uncomfortable, not sure who they're with and why they're here with people. And I sometimes wonder what would happen if all of a sudden, in the middle of that service, all those people, there was a whole lot of balloons.
No one told you that was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke, love life's in your way. It's like you're always stuck in second gear. When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. But I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like you've been there before, I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too. Still in bed at 8, but work began at 8. You burned your breakfast so far, things are going great. Your mother told you there'd be days like these, but she didn't tell you when the world brought you down to your knees. Like, I'll be there for you. When it starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like you've been there before, I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too. No one could ever know me, no one could ever see me. Sometimes the only one who knows what it's like to be someone to face the day with, spend all our life and mess with, always laugh with, even when I'm worst, I'll mess with you. stuck in second gear. When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year. I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like you've been there before, I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too. I'll be there for you. When the rain starts to pour, I'll be there for you. Like you've been there before, I'll be there for you. 'Cause you're there for me too.
All right. All right, you can kind of let them die down for the moment. I have a funny feeling this church may never be the same again. I don't know. And if this is your first time here, no, we don't do it every week. But you can say, you know, my first time, I can't remember the day we did this balloon drop. You know, we're going to have 2 sacraments today. That was the first. The sacrament of fun, where people just enjoying the grace of God in a strange way. They say, well, this doesn't belong in church. I'm not so sure. Do you feel different about the people kind of around you now after you batted balloons with them? We said earlier on, I know, they warned me, we'll never get it back. And they're probably right. But I said earlier that if you're not able to have fun, if you're not able to play with another person, it probably means there's a problem in that relationship. And if you can laugh with that person, if you can play with them, it probably means there is no burden too heavy that somehow you can't deal with it. And hopefully you experience that just in a little way there, because that's the last thing that I want to talk about today. And that is God uses fun to build friendships. God uses fun to build friendships. And you know how that has been. I mean, once you batted a balloon with the person next to you, you may not know their name, but you probably can talk about all kinds of things because you had fun together. And God uses fun to build friendships among us, and that is so key to how that goes. Yeah, you can just keep the offering baskets passing. When you get them done, just bring them on down here. We're casual about that. That's okay. And, you know, in a way that we find it played out most often in the Bible, especially in Jesus' life, is around meals. I mean, meals are a fun thing. I enjoy eating. Anyone else enjoy eating? Yeah. Okay. We enjoy eating. In fact, we like being at a table together. And one of the most fun experiences, one of the most fun things that we can do together is to get together around eating. And we find some good examples of that. We find, first of all, Jesus. And this is a story, well, it fits out of what, maybe a little different way of looking at Jesus than we often do. I mean, we think about Jesus on his way to the cross and all his weighty sayings and things like that. But think about the Jesus that had to be going on for him to be able to carry that burden all those years, okay? This is a little depiction of Jesus that maybe helps you understand that. Not coming? Okay, I guess we will just skip that part. Wasn't that fun? All right. But Jesus talks about the fun in the meals all the time. There's this passage here. I just want to read this from Luke chapter 5. When Levi, who was a tax collector, okay, one of the people that no one liked and that Jesus wasn't supposed to hang out, gave a great banquet for Jesus in his house. And there was a large crowd of tax collectors and others sitting at the table with them. The Pharisees and the scribes were complaining to the disciples, saying, "Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" And Jesus answered, "Because they're more fun than you." No. He said, "Because those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick." But the whole idea is that Jesus gets together with people and he pulls them together around a banquet. A banquet was Jesus was having. This wasn't a teaching seminar. It wasn't a worship service. He was having a banquet. A loose translation of that is a party. He was having fun with these people. He was mixing with them, enjoying their company, and they're enjoying his company. Jesus likes to do that around meals. He uses meals to do that. The fun and the enjoyment of each other, the delight that we find to break through those and to build our relationships. We find here in the very first days, the first months of the new church after Jesus' resurrection, And the disciples are filled with the Holy Spirit and teaching what they know about Jesus to the people in Jerusalem and beyond. It tells us this. It's the second chapter of Acts. It says, day by day, as these people who are beginning to know who Jesus was, spent much time together in the temple. That doesn't mean in a place, but it means what they were grounded in. They were spending a lot of time together, and they broke bread. That means they were eating meals, and they ate their food. How? With glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all people. It means the outside world was looking at them and saying, wow, these are kind of cool people. That's okay. I approve of what they're doing. They're having fun. They're enjoying each other. They're getting the best of life, and for good reasons. And day by day, the Lord added to their numbers those who were being saved. People wanted to be part of it. Now, I believe what someone taught me some years ago, that the growth of a church is going to be directly proportional to the amount of laughter that happens in worship services. Because I think that's true. Because God uses the fun that we can have together, not just the somberness, not just all the heavy stuff that we have, but God uses the fun that we can experience to pull us together and to make us a community. I also think it's true because, like we often say here at Jacob's Well, it's a sin for a church to be boring. We've got the best news in the world, and if we bore the world with it, boy, we've got something wrong. We can have some exciting and some fun stuff together here. And that's what God is calling us to do together. And so we gather at a meal as well, and that's how we would like to end with our service today, have the closing of our service, and to share this meal of communion. And I want to tell you just a brief story about that as well as we get into it. But my oldest sister is 12 years older than I am. So when she was in college, I was 6. And when her sophomore year, which probably means I was 7 by this time, she was going to college out of state. She told me that she was going to come and take me back to college with her for a long weekend. I could not believe this. My big sister was going to take me to college for her. This was like my wildest fantasy I'd never even been able to dream about. And she came and she drove me back to college with her. I don't remember how they arranged to have me get back after a couple days. But I went there, and I was on ultimate good behavior. Not because I was afraid of anything. I wasn't afraid of her. I wasn't. But I just knew this was so special. It was such an honor to be brought to college with her that I am just going to be good as gold. And I remember we got there and we did some stuff, and on the second day, she took me with all of her friends to this little greasy spoon down on Main Street called Mike's. I remember, you know what? I won't tell you how many years later, but a lot of years later at Mike's, and we had fried egg sandwiches, which was a specialty of that place. And I thought, well, I'm going to be with all of her friends, and they're going to kind of ignore me. But nope, she sat right next to me, and she and her friends directed all their attention to get to know me and to have fun with me and to make me feel like I belonged there. I tell you, it was the dream come true. It was such an honor to be a part of that meal with these people. If you could just stretch that analogy one step further, what if I had discovered that this was the last thing that my sister could ever do in her whole life, and she had chosen to direct it and to give it to me as a gift so that I could know how special I was to her? If you can imagine that, you can imagine this meal we call communion. This meal where Jesus says, I have one last thing to do, and I want to do it for you and with you and to you. And I want you, because you are the most important thing in the world, the most important person in the world. And that is how we gather at these communion tables. We gather as the best guests, the greatest guests that God could possibly ever imagine, and you are invited to be a part of it. And it is an honor, and it is wonderful, and it is fun, and it is special. It is sacred. It is set apart from any other experience you could ever have. You see, communion isn't about me. Communion isn't about us. Communion is about Jesus and you. It's about Jesus and you. It's about Jesus and you. And it's about Jesus and me. And the funny thing is, when we all gather on the table, we look around it and we see each other, and we realize we are all a community that Jesus sees that way, and that Jesus did the very last and most powerful and most wonderful thing he could possibly do for each and every one of us. And it is wonderful, and it is good, and it is something to delight in, and to enjoy, and to believe is good. And so that night, when Jesus gathered his disciples, and he had that last gift to give, and he broke bread with them, and he said, This bread is my body, which is given you, because I know that you are hungry in so many ways, and I want to fill that hunger in your life. I want you to have that joy that will be complete because of the joy I give to you in your life. And afterwards, he took a cup, and he said, this cup is my blood, which is poured out for you as a covenant, as a promise that I will be with you always. And that thirst that is within you that seems unquenchable, I will quench it. And I will fill your life with love and enjoyment and goodness. And he says, come, receive this meal. I invite you to come forward. There are 4 stations here.